Man, any day that I get to sit down with a Treadwell is a good day. I've had Whitney, I nicknamed her Whitwell, on my TV show, Who She's a Hoot. I love being with Lola. Spencer's one of the nicest people in the world, but you two together. Now, I was telling my producer, Lindsay Fizell, I said, you have to understand these two, because they're not talkers. But we're going to sit down and do a talking interview with them and hope some Lola comes out of them. Blake, there's more help for you because you've got some of Mama's blood in you.
That's right.
But my wonderful friend, the great Don Treadwell. Treddy, I just love you and I appreciate you. And Blake, you know what I think of you.
Oh, yeah. So,
my guy. And man, guys, I got so much I want to dig in with you two. And I want to start because, Blake, I remember you as a little boy playing and you were the little boy. And you and Spence were the apple of Dad's eye. And now you grew from that into a great athlete. Now your father was a great athlete and a great coach, but you didn't get this opportunity because you were Don Treadwell's kid. You earned it. You earned your own scholarship. And then you came and played. And Dad left, so you switched sides of the ball, became a captain. Then you went and grew and became a coach. And now the relationship grows from Dad and little boy, Dad and player, Dad and colleague, and then he moves in your house, and then he's a roommate. I mean, do you guys agree this has been transformational, right, Coach?
No question. I mean, you couldn't have scripted it out any better. It's been wonderful.
How's that transition been for Blake?
It's been fine, no issues really. Both work a lot, so most of our time's here, really, to be honest with you. But it's been a fun experience for sure.
Guys, I want to dig in on a lot of different stuff, and I want to start, Blake, with something your dad told me when you were at East Lansing, before you even got a scholarship. And I'll never forget this, and we were not talking as media because I'm friends with them and your mom, and it was him and I just talking as two Christian brothers. But he just said, I want Blake to go where Blake wants, because I don't want him to feel like he's in my shadow. Now, you know this, guys. There's a lot of testosterone in the sports world. This is my boy. This is my guy. Your dad never made you Don Treadwell's son. He was always Blake Treadwell's dad. Were you able to appreciate that?
Yeah, I'll definitely say more when I was done playing and kind of, when everything kind of, going through the thought process and everything. And, he was always there to help me. There's never kind of that critical, that overbearing shoulder type of coach / dad. Mm-hmm. I definitely say it was more of a dad approach, and I grew, as you get older, you appreciate things. What's
the biggest lesson that you think your dad's ever taught you?
I think anything, patience. You might not get what you want right now. Sometimes it's a long road, but eventually, if you stay true who you are, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. So I definitely say patience is definitely one of the big things.
Coach, what's the biggest lesson you've tried to teach him?
I think, football teaches all of us a lot of lessons. That's why the sport is so unique and special. I think one of the words for me, though, probably would be discipline. As I think back to my father, hardworking man, the one thing you knew that, hey, he was going to be where he needed to be, on time, do the best job he could. So I think that word discipline, and we use it pretty heavily in the sport of football, but that's probably something I try to emulate and certainly tried to drill within him as they grew.
The reason I asked that question, we're going to have some trick questions today, but because as a third party, I'm a media guy that's covered you, but as a friend of the family, I see a huge way that your father's impacted you, and I don't know if he tried to, but neither of you mentioned it. And this is what I wanted to tell you, Blake, and I would like you to tell me if I picked it up right. When if I was asked to give one word to describe Don Treadwell, it would be integrity. I have watched your father in opportunities where he could lie, not. I've watched him in opportunities where telling the truth would have made him look better. He kept his mouth shut. I don't think there is a greater word than integrity to describe a man. And man, you're Don 2.0 in the same way. You've had some opportunities where you could say things and you just kept your mouth shut. Maybe people said some things you could have defended yourself, you didn't. Stepping back in here in a third party, do you see where that really rubbed off on you?
Yeah, I guess in some ways you could say that. I remember, 2010 when Coach D had, his heart attack. I remember when my dad was kind of taking over for that little bit of time. He wanted to do what Coach D would do it. And, he could have gone this way or that way, but, he kind of really stuck to what, believing what the Coach D said, going from there, and the whole team kind of realized that. And, I've kind of known that my whole life of, he's got to do what you're told, and as well, you got to know what's right from wrong.
Don, I have always wanted to ask you this, and I never have, but as long as I've known you, even before you were at Michigan State, being a father has been, that and Lola's husband has been your pride. It's never Don Treadwell, coach. I think if you were to make a business card, it would say Don Treadwell, Lola's husband, and a dad. Oh, by the way, I'm a coach. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from? Is it just your faith? Did you learn it from your dad? Where does that come from? Because we have an epidemic in America. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a brown, red, blue, purple, green. It's not money. We don't have enough dads. We don't have men being men and raising the children they make. You are committed to that. Where'd it come from?
I'm sure that came from just the upbringing that I had within my own family structure, and that's, a little bit different when you think back. Of course, you're making me tell my age, Hondo, but when you think back to the 60s
mm-hmm.
and early 70s, there probably were a lot more family units
mm-hmm.
that were intact. Dad was at home, mom's at home, sometimes both working, dad for sure working, etc. So you just kind of grew up anticipating, well, this is just the way it is. And then when you also had the opportunity to experience and see firsthand, in my opinion, the close-knit type of family, which we had, which other people had in our neighborhood, which my coaches had, my youth coaches had a great impact on me. Well, that was just the norm. So you were like, well, that's how it should be done. Why would I be any different as I grow up?
That's pretty amazing. Blake, you live you're still young, you're the young pup in the group, but you know this, there's a lot of players that don't have strong families. You do. And so I'm curious, are you able to appreciate the father you have, maybe having been in a locker room with guys that didn't have dads, coaching kids now that don't have dads? Are you able to appreciate it more?
Oh, without doubt, yes. When I left here and went to South Florida for a few years, a lot of those players, unfortunately, did not have dads. Our star quarterback, Quentin Flowers, did not grow up with a father. And, it's just, you can tell that a lot of those players are missing that father, relationship, that role model. And some coaches had to take upon that, but it made me really appreciate having a father and a strong figure to lean upon when you're young growing up and even today.
Don, I want to share something. I've never told you this, and I wanted the right opportunity, but I'm going to say it in front of Blake, and because he told me. And it was in 2 times in my career have I interviewed someone and walked away with tears. The first was interviewing a mother whose son had committed suicide, and she had implored Tony Dungy to start All-Pro Dad, and the impact. And then, of course, we know what happened to Tony's son. The other time was interviewing Blake, and he had just been elected captain. You had left the program, and someone asked him about, being a captain, what's the legacy? And he laughed, because it was one of the few times people had ever seen him laugh. Matter of fact, everyone in the media was laughing about him laughing. And he said, I want to make my dad proud. Now, I don't think it hit other media members because they don't have the friendship that I have with you two. But having known you so long, I walked away with tears. It meant the world to me. When you hear at what would have been a pinnacle of a young man's career, to be elected a captain at one of the top football programs in America. And his answer is, I don't want to use it for the NFL, whatever. It was, I just want to make my dad proud. Man, what's that mean to you?
Well, I don't know that you can put that meaning in words, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because there's just, that's a whole nother level outside of the norm, because we're talking about a connection, a father-son connection, and it's probably one of the highest compliments you can have. But at the end of the day, and you've already touched on it, as men of faith, as a family, that is our foundation, I think a lot of those things stem from there, because it's not me basically doing anything. I'm just following the guidance of the man upstairs, So I believe if I can do that, and I've been blessed, as you already alluded to, with a wonderful wife, and like you said, if I had a business card, he would read Lola and Don, Treadwell and family. So I think all that mixes in the pot together, and if down the road, if our children can hopefully do things the the way that we've at least tried to present for them to move forward with their life in their own unique way, then we feel like we've been blessed.
Most fans don't get to know the Treadwells, and here's what I love about your family. First of all, Lola, your wife, your mom, over-the-top fun. You cannot spend more than 5 seconds with Lola Treadwell. I would love to go to a funeral with her because I think she could make it fun. She's one of the funnest human. I remember literally being, I think it was at his graduation, but I was somewhere, and she grabbed me with her sisters and put me on the dance floor. I'm like, Lola, I'm a big fat white guy. What are you putting me on the dance floor for? But I mean, it's her personality. She bubbles with a love for the Lord. She bubbles with a love for her family. Of course, and I'm buddies with Whitney, who I just absolutely love and adore, who is Lola 2.0. And I'm sitting with with Whitney last year. I think we're having a cup of coffee or something. And I was teasing her about her dating life. She was dating someone at the time I didn't like. And luckily, she's gotten rid of him. But you know my point. And she said to me, she said, do you know how hard it is when Don Treadwell's your dad and Blake Treadwell's your brother? And they're the standard, and Spencer, they're the standard. I'm never going to fight anyone. And I just laughed because I thought, first of all, that's got to make you proud that she looks at you and her brother and says, that's my standard. And it has to make you proud. I mean, you've been protective of your sister, and of course, I'm sure it does Spencer as well. To have you three as the standard, as a dad, can there be a better compliment from a daughter?
You know, those are things that make you think outside the box. I don't sit around and spend a lot of time with that, so that's a uniqueness, and we're thankful that maybe she sees some qualities in Dad and her brothers that, can help her make decisions that will, bring her forward, hopefully at some point, maybe the right husband at the right time.
What is that? For your sister to give you that compliment, Blake, what's that mean?
It means a lot to me, but, she's helped me out a lot as well, though, to be honest. She gave me a lot of, advice about this and that. But, it means a lot.
I think Whitney gives everybody a lot of advice,
sure,
whether you ask for it or not.
You're right.
She's giving me advice, too.
Yeah, she has her own strong opinions. But, it means a lot. And, she just understands it,
She gets it.
She does.
I want to dig in a little bit with the two of you on something that I think is really important. And it's about people. It's about relationships. You two have been masters at building relationships, just tremendous with it. I think it's been why you've been great coaches. Blake, clearly you're on a career path. It's going to take you a long ways. You've really followed your dad, obviously done what you've done. But you've built relationships. When I'm brought into schools to speak to people, I tell them, whatever career path you pick, whether it's ministry, whether it's media, coaching, fireman, whatever, everything starts on relationships. If people can't trust you, if people can't know your character, it doesn't matter what you are. I want to talk about relationships. If you were speaking to a young man, Don, that didn't have a father, trying to figure out life, what would you say to those young men?
I think that's a process more than it is an answer in the front end. You know what I mean? I think to the part of relationships, the whole big part of that is time spent. That's one of the things that makes Michigan State athletics so special, this university so special, because he and I have had an investment of time here, and because of the people, though, connected, you being a part of that as well, it has made this place stand out far and above, any other place that we've been, and it's unique because of the people. So I think once you spend time with people, that's when you really start to get to know them, and then you just are looking for some consistency in who they are as people. And some of us are blessed that, I think everyone has certain unique gifts, from that perspective. And so that relationship piece is a piece that, again, when you go back to your early beginnings, me as a son with my family, as a young player with all of my young youth league coaches, I had great relationships with them. And it wasn't so much that they said, hey, we're going to have a great relationship. It's just they kept being consistent in the little things they did, and I grew to respect them. Therefore, the relationship became very strong. What
would you say to young men who don't have a dad?
Probably kind of piggyback what my dad said and go on, show them that you care about them. I kind of learned that when I first got into the GA business. A coach kind of said, if you get these guys, that they care about you, you care about them, they'll go, leaps and bounds for you and do what you want them to do. So I definitely say, show them some way, like my dad said, the process, and really show that you care for them, and hopefully that can build into something special.
I want to take you back to your senior year. You're a captain at Michigan State. You are not a guy who's going to get up and go into a 4-letter tirade and threaten to kill people and beat people up. It's just not Blake Treadwell. But your senior year, there was one game where you spoke up, and that team came roaring back, and afterwards, a lot of guys were, that was Blake. That was Blake. And you may remember the next week I said to you, Blake, have you ever thought about coaching? Because I'd never heard about that side of you. I'm curious about something. Your father's not one to waste words. So when he speaks, you better listen. Is that a fair thing to say that's coming out in Coach Blake Treadwell?
I'll say so a little bit, kind of a process. In my earlier years, I was just kind of quiet, didn't know, when to say something, when not to. And then eventually I kind of got over that fear of, of not speaking. Mm-hmm. And once I got through that, it helped. And as well, I was just being authentic. I think if you can be who you are, people respect that. And, that's just who I am. I'm not going to speak a lot, but the few words I am saying is going to be authentic, and, it comes from the heart.
I totally agree. That's a great point on your part. My father was my best friend, and I talked to him the morning that he passed, when he went into a coma. And we were going to go out that night, and there was something I was going to tell him, and I never got to tell him. And I had told him every day of my life I loved him, so it wasn't anything deep, but it was something I just wish I'd have told him this morning on the phone. So I'm going to ask you a question. You two are one of two of the finest people that I know. I am proud to call Blake and Don Treadwell friends. But if we're walking out of this room and your dad fell over with a heart attack, tell your dad something that you hope he knows about, you feel about him.
We've talked about this before of, if you were to go away, he said, I laid you a foundation how to be a man, do the right things, and it'll take care of itself. And, he knows that if that day does happen, that he's done a right job raising his son and is able to do the job of being a man and holding the Treadwell name strong.
What would you want Blake to know if that happened?
Oh, like Blake said, we talk about things past me being here, so it's not really a whole lot new. We just encourage him, if you will, to continue to keep his faith strong, number one, and we tell him to continue to honor his mother, and I know he will take care of her, and to be the brother to his sister and his brother, that to the best of his ability. And if he does those things, then we know we'll be all right.
I purposely didn't want this interview to be all football because, quite frankly, football for all of us is such a small part of our life. Doesn't mean, obviously, I make the bulk of my living because of football, and you guys do too, but it isn't who we are as men. But I've known Mark D'Antonio a long time when he was just an assistant coach. I'm proud to call him a dear friend. I admire him. I love him. He's a man of character. Obviously, you feel the same way as your father, your son's godson. But I'm curious, I believe like-minded people find each other. If you're a person that integrity and character matters, you're going to probably hang around with people of character and integrity. If it doesn't matter, then you'll probably hang around with people that aren't. What does it mean for two men committed to their faith, committed to integrity and character? What does it mean to you to work for a man who mirrors those values? I'll start with you, Coach.
Oh, I think that's just a double blessing. It's one thing to have a job in general, okay, in a Power 5 school. I mean, that's what most coaches strive to do, is to continue to build and to grow, and if the opportunity presents itself, take advantage of it. But to land in a situation or grow with a situation, more so with me, because as you mentioned, as long as you've known D'Antonio, I've probably known him longer. Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about back since 1986, when he and I were, quote, young coaches at that time, it's been really neat that even though we spent a lot of time in our early careers with Jim Tressel, and then even when we split and started going our different ways, our families, became strong, and at marriage, he was stopped at mine, I was involved with his, Lola and I, so it's been a connection there, number one, outside of football, as you've already talked about. So then, though, to see him in his trajectory move forward as an assistant coach, coordinator, head coach at Cincinnati, head coach at Michigan State. None of that surprised me because of the qualities you've already talked about. And that makes it extra special to be at a place where you not only are in a great university, Michigan State, you have a tremendous person in the role of leadership that has so many intangibles that you wish other head coaches would have.
What's it mean to you to be on the staff with a guy like that?
Oh, it means a lot. I mean, his character speaks upon itself. We don't need to go into that. But as well, he really cares about people. And, if you look at me and his relationship is kind of evolving. As that little kid kind of just running around and this and this, start playing a little football. And then, I played for him, and now I'm kind of working with him as a coach. It was kind of still evolving, the relationship. But, he's not once changed since I met him. I remember early as I can remember. I can't remember because he knew me since I was born. But, he's just been who he is, strong, really cares about people and loves, he's a man face, that's for sure.
I agree. 2 more questions and we'll be done. This is the only football question I'm going to ask, and it's not X's and O's. You grew up with a dad who was an offensive star coordinator. Your dad is an offensive guy. Now you're an offensive line coach, working and doing all your little things. Now he's back here working with defense. Do you feel like he's gone to the dark side?
It's a little different because he's not in that staff room with the offense. We kind of joke a little bit, me and Coach Staten, Bowman, Warner, all that kind of tease. So it's a little different, but I know, though, he's always watching the offense. That's not a question. He is watching. He has an eye for the offense, that's for sure.
Do you feel like you've switched to the dark side a little bit?
No, not at all. I think I love this game. So, how many times do you get a chance, Hondo, especially when you've been a veteran coach, to switch gears, so to speak, and sit in the other room and absorb all that information that you've always wondered about? In this profession, if you're going to grow, you want to keep learning as much as you can. And I've always been jealous. I tell all my high school coaching buddies that, man, I've always been jealous because in high school, you have to grow up and coach offense and defense. It's expected. Well, down the road when you become a college coach, they kind of say, let's just refine you. And for the most part, there are coaches that change, but for the most part, they say you're on one side of the ball. But so to have the opportunity to really jump onto that side, I've jumped in with both feet. Hopefully whatever I can do to help bring things to light from the perspective of the experience I've had, we'll certainly do that. But I'm just excited to be over there to hear exactly, through the voice of whether it be the head coach, sharing things in general, Coach Tressel as coordinator, Paul Haynes secondary, Burton, Bulla, you name it, I'm learning from all of them. So, it's been wonderful, to be honest, to be over there.
There's a lot of energy in that room, and then you come in, you're kind of like a little balancer a little bit.
It's fun. It's been fun.
Last one. Blake, I've had the privilege of knowing you a long time, and I know because we've talked privately, but I've never asked you on camera. And I know that you're not a guy that likes to open up on camera, okay? But you're sitting next to one of my favorite human beings, and I know he is yours. What's your daddy mean to you?
Oh, I really can't put in words, what a father is to someone, especially the way he's been. He's a father, coach, someone I can lean on. I really can't put in words or express in words of how much he means for me and what he's done for me.
What's this guy mean to you? I know because I've got a chance to watch it. It's just been I've been so blessed to have a front row seat to your family, and I love you, but and for those people who haven't, what does he mean to you?
Well, I think he touched on it pretty well. I don't know that you can sum it up in a few words. We all use the word love, and that's a very serious word, very powerful word. So I think we've grown up with that all along. I think one of the words that that we typically look when we watch our children grow up is how proud we are of them. Because there's a lot of challenges in this journey of life, as we know, and to see him grow and develop to stay the course, on his goals and aspirations. It's something that Lola and I are very proud of him, as well as his sister and brother as well.
Well, I don't end too many interviews this way, but I love you.
All right.
And I appreciate you. I love you, Blake. I appreciate you. Thanks, guys.